Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain and logistics industry. It's my great pleasure to welcome today's program, Jerry Ballenger, who is owner and founder at American Newspaper Solutions, and Jason Fry, who is senior business development at RouteSmart. And today we're going to talk about why driver satisfaction matters in last mile delivery. Now, last mile delivery is tightly linked with customer experience, which is becoming a greater competitive differentiator across many industries. So which employees are in the driver's seat to deliver the best customer experience? Well, the answer is delivery drivers, probably not surprising. So how does driver satisfaction impact customer experience, customer satisfaction? Why does driver satisfaction matter? And what actions can companies take to improve driver satisfaction? And how can technology help? Well, those are some of the main questions we're going to address in today's episode. And it's great to have Jerry and Jason on the program to share their insights and advice on this topic. So Jerry, Jason, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks, Adrian. It's my pleasure. And I'm looking forward to this discussion on such an important subject.
Yeah, thank you as well. And Jerry, I hope you and I can keep it brief, as our conversations generally aren't brief. So we'll do our best to stay within the confines of what Adrian has defined.
Well, so you mean I get to do all the talking and you have to sit there?
See, already, here we go. Go ahead.
Well, this is obviously, a very meaty topic. And as we'll, talk about today in the episode here, there's also a research report that we worked on together that focuses on this topic. So for those of you that are interested in this topic, diving even further into this topic, you can certainly download the report and read it. So Jerry, let's start with you and kind of be, your first time guest here on Talking Logistics. So, kind of before we dive into this topic, I always like to, learn how people get involved in this industry. And so tell us a little bit about your career path and how and why you got involved in this industry and kind of what your current roles and responsibilities are.
Well, my primary background is in accounting, and I started my career in the print media business and in Chicago, and migrated over time. And I'm now in Michigan, where I operated a number of daily and weekly newspaper operations. I also, in that path, was a labor negotiator, designer of major distribution systems across our landscapes. And that led to me being the founder of A&S, American Newspaper Solutions. So that was the first company that really took most of the skill sets that I developed over my career and put them into an independent company focusing on certain elements that I felt was needed in the industry. From there, I also moved into technology development for the same purpose. I was an early adapter to the idea that distribution companies really needed guidance above what was capable at that point in time. So nearly 20 years ago, I got on the path of technology development. And that formed a new company called RouteSmart Technologies, which became how basically Jason and I, our two companies, formed an alliance and a partnership because of the ability for the two companies to really serve their market opportunities in a much more efficient and a much more deliverable way. And I use that term because that's what we do, sure, as it relates to the industries we serve. And I also then invested into a distribution company and expanded out of the media companies. That was our primary area of responsibility. So we moved into parcel distribution, and I also became involved in helping companies form opportunities in that particular industry. So that's my background, and that's why and how I arrived at this point with you, Adrian.
Great. Well, obviously a wealth of experience there from multiple different angles. And, when you think about last mile delivery and home delivery, no other industry probably than the newspaper industry probably has the most know-how and experience in doing that gets translated and updated, if you will, to everything that's going on right now in the world of e-commerce and, parcel delivery. And then obviously technology is playing a critical role in helping enable all that. So again, great background, great experience. And I think, it's going to provide some great insights into the topic here. So let's get into the topic now, Jerry, and I'll start with you and then Jason, move on to you as well. So like I mentioned earlier, late last year, in a survey we conducted with 28 leading companies that have last mile and home delivery operations, almost 90% of the respondents either strongly agreed that there is a direct link between driver satisfaction and customer satisfaction. Again, 90% direct link between driver satisfaction and customer satisfaction. So I guess the first question is, do these results surprise you? And second, how does driver satisfaction impact customer satisfaction?
Well, Adrian, I'd like to make a comment, if I may, also, that in the understanding I have of the data that was the collected data that is the background for this, really ran through a number of different types of distribution companies. For example, there are the companies that are servicing the national and international providers, and there are independents that are across the country, and they're in variable sizes, variable stages of where they're at as far as their company's status and growth and all those opportunities. So there's a lot of difference in the bundle of providers, because it is a emerging category, and everybody's running to that light as quickly as they can, and it's creating opportunity, and it's also creating the expansion of technologies and supports that RouteSmart company and my companies will be able to provide to these companies. But it's in that statement, there is some diversity in relationship to the findings, and I'll try to point those out as we go through this to some degree. No, not a surprise. It's direct. It's the last link in the chain, and it can positively impact the chain upstream or at the end of the stream. It has the magnitude to take a shipper's relationship with a user of their products and change the outcome. So it's critical to all the way up to the beginning of the chain, and obviously to the last mile of the chain.
Yeah, I think when you think of a delivery driver, in many ways they're a brand ambassador, right? They're the probably, aside perhaps from in the old days, right, where a lot of people used to go into the physical stores to buy, right? They may see a salesperson or someone there, so a physical human being that they're talking to, but then the last person that they interact with is that delivery driver, right? Which is really representative of the brand, and everything can go right, upstream, with the sales process, the product, the quality, everything else. And if that delivery process goes wrong, and even the interaction with the driver, there's some negative consequences to it for whatever reason, it ends up harming the brand, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. It travels all the way upstream from the point of entry into the system all the way down to the front door, hopefully, of the recipient. So yeah, absolutely. And a lot of companies, need to stand back and think about that, because that goes back to the conversation of technology support and having the insight to manage your company and manage these drivers in any spot on the earth, which is really important to do.
Right. Jason, did you want to add something?
I was just going to say that the drivers are in the customer relationship business, period. There's no doubt that they are the interacting face with the end client, as well as Jerry points out, slightly up the chain. But at the end of the day, who am I interacting with? Not the guy loading the truck, not the person entering the information. It's the person that's coming to my doorstep and dropping off a package.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jason, I'll move on to you now. I mean, it's kind of beyond this link to customer satisfaction. Why does driver satisfaction ultimately matter?
Well, I think first of all, the hiring of well, I don't even think this. I know that hiring of drivers is an ongoing issue, industry wide, and not just industry wide, but among all industries that are doing anything related to delivery. Are you familiar with a publication called Modern Shipper?
Yeah.
It's a newsletter that talks all things delivery, from gig on up to last mile jobs and services and those kind of things. I picked up a stat from them the other day. 37.8% of last mile delivery firms in North America said finding qualified drivers to hire is their biggest issue. 37.8. The number two issue is at 24.4% is reducing last mile inefficiencies. So if we stop and think about that for a second, that means it's less important to lower operational costs than it is to get a warm body in that vehicle and headed down the road. That's astounding when you stop and think about it. Jerry, I don't know if you had any comments on your struggles with hiring folks, specifically on the last mile side.
Well, it's ongoing, as you said, and it's been that way since 2020. I think particularly in this industry, October of 2020.
Sure.
It's really when the market, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And certainly COVID was the primary disruptor at that point. And now there's other issues and other situations that are commingling with that problem and actually extending that problem. And you're right, it's a challenge not only in this sector, any sector I'm involved in currently is an issue. And most people who I know, it's an issue, including the auto industry and the friends that I have in that industry. They also are struggling for the same purposes. And the quality of what the folks are that they need is really a part of the issue too. There's a higher need for technology thinking, capable folks in that industry, and they're hard to find.
Yeah.
So it's,
I think we've reached one of those.
Board. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those critical times where, because that's the way we've always done it, is simply just not a feasible response to anything at this point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's so much being talked about in terms of this labor shortage problem, and there's a lot talked about in terms of obviously over the road truck drivers. But you know, Jerry, as you alluded to, I mean, this is an issue in warehousing, finding the right, enough people in warehousing, enough people in manufacturing, and really, we did an episode here on Talking Logistics not too long ago in terms of talking this labor shortage problem and how it's really, when you look at it, it's really a demographics problem. Yeah, at the end of the day, we're not, the birth rate in the United States, as well as many other countries around the world, are not keeping up with the, retirement and death rate. And so the pool just continues to shrink and shrink. So which makes, it's not only hiring folks, right, but retaining those folks becomes critically, important. Once you have someone that is high quality, a safe driver, technology, is savvy with technology, has good human, person-to-person skills, right? That customers love when they show up at their doorstep to deliver the package or the goods. That's why it's so critical to kind of be able to do what you can to make them satisfied with their job, so you can retain them and not lose them to a competitor or lose them to a different industry, altogether. So Jerry, this brings me to my next question, right? So I think I think we recognize the importance of driver, satisfaction, but going back to the survey, more than half of the respondents in the survey, 57%, reported that they currently do not measure driver satisfaction. Again, do these results surprise you, and why isn't that percentage much higher?
Well, no, it doesn't surprise me at all. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to get more complicated until there are some reliefs occurring in the subject you just talked about, which is human resource. But we're dealing with a lot of different types of companies, some that are large, heavily invested. We're dealing with a lot of startup companies that are just doesn't have the capital to invest heavily into what what their opportunities might be. It's really all about, in my opinion, financial and human resources is really the critical separation that is creating that issue. A lot of companies just don't have the finances to invest in management and invest in training, health products, all the other elements that already now you're competing in a market that's expanding in those capabilities because of the desire of attracting more opportunity of hires out of that same category. We didn't, in the industries we were in, have much competition for human resource until today. And now you mentioned gig drivers, you mentioned all the other types of industries that's developing around it, that's drying up our human resource pool, and it's costing great money to do that. Whatever happened to 7.45 as minimum wage? Nobody in this country is hiring anybody successfully or retaining them at least 15 plus. So the world has changed dynamically. The human resource capability has changed. The financial aspects and needs of certain companies have changed. I'll give you an example of that. In the world of the majors, the national, international providers of this service, it is a difficult stretch for those IC companies working for those companies to be successful because they can't elevate their income, right? Their income is controlled and they can't minimize their human resource well because there's certain goals that you have to meet and standards. So you're really trapped in, you can't elevate your own income and you're not going to, it's very much of a struggle to minimize. That opens up a lot of opportunity, I believe, for this growth sector, which is the private sector. I think it gives hope and the opportunity for these categories to expand.
I think you raised a lot of great points here. I mean, going back to what you said earlier too, sometimes we think we talk about, I'm guilty of this as well. We talk about last mile delivery and we talk about home delivery, almost as this, homogenous entity, but it's really a very heterogeneous, environment, everything from, the UPSs and FedExes of the world to the gig economy, types of outfits to, multiple other models, that are out there. So when you're talking about, like you said, the ability of some of these companies to offer, competitive pay, to offer 401ks, let's say, or health insurance plans and the like. I mean, these are all things that ultimately, roll into and contribute to, customer satisfaction. But I think what you just said here, challenges sometimes turn into opportunities as well. And this becomes an opportunity. Yeah, this becomes an opportunity for, for certain segments of the market to really differentiate themselves, to attract that talent and retain them, by having more flexibility and more creativity in what they do, right?
Oh, absolutely. And, really it's, if, in my humble opinion, the growth aspect of this company or this sector is not going to occur by the national and international companies. Actually, I believe there's going to be shrinkage there for a lot of reasons. And I think that opens the door for pricing changes in the sub-market, which is the private enterprises, the entrepreneurs that are out there trying to find a niche. I think that's going to open up a cavity of opportunity for those providers, as long as they stay the course and absolutely focus as much as they can based on the income that they're generating back into the driver operations, and equally as important, a management staff that allows people to really have access to and communication rather than one or two people are trying to run a company. But that is still the cause of a lot of issues, and it's all back to human resource and financial stability into those markets, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, great point. So Jason, to you now. I mean, touch upon a little bit about technology now. I mean, what actions can companies, take to improve driver satisfaction, and how can technology help?
Well, I think Jerry nailed it. And I don't think any of us need a survey to read a survey or surveys to figure it out. What do people want? They want higher wages and better healthcare, as well as 401ks and all those other secondary and tertiary benefits. I think drivers and the survey bears this out, but drivers want they don't want surprises. They want to show up and know that they're going to have a fair and balanced workload every day. They want the truck loaded in a logical way for easy package retrieval. And enabling technology just in those two particular items would go a long way to bettering the satisfaction. I think it's kind of simple.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've never.
I should say simple to talk about, a little more difficult to implement.
Right. I mean, I can just and I've seen cases where I've seen a delivery driver, in the back of the van, hunting,
Yep.
and they're probably in there for 5 minutes trying to find the box or the package.
Yep.
And I could just see, I've never been a delivery driver, but I can see if that happens throughout the day and throughout my route, how frustrating that can be where, it's,
Sure.
You expect to show up quickly, grab the package, deliver it. But meanwhile, you're spending 5-10 minutes at every stop, just hunting, for a package or, not knowing what you're going to be doing, day in or day out. I think could get, pretty frustrating.
I'll add a personal story. I'm looking out the window. That's why I'm looking over there. Not 2 weeks ago, I look out and there's a major parcel delivery company with 2 of their vehicles on my cul-de-sac, not even my street, my cul-de-sac. And of course, as a routing professional, that drives me nuts, right? Turns out they're not a RouteSmart client. Maybe that's part of the problem, right? So I kind of stopped my vehicle and I be honest with you, I got up my phone and took a picture. And one of the drivers was not happy that I was doing that. They came and confronted me almost. And I said, hey, I'm in this world. I understand. I'm fully aware of your frustration. It turns out that there was a package on one vehicle that should have been on the other. So they agreed that this was a good meetup spot. So this driver had to leave their entire route, come to the other route, get that one or two particular packages and return. So, eliminating those kind of things, which are always going to happen, but maybe minimizing those type of interactions will go a long way towards satisfaction. She was not happy about the situation, let alone the fact that I was taking a picture of the situation. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes you just have to, if you really pay attention, you'll see some of those inefficiencies and some of those challenges that happen on a day-to-day basis. That again, drivers are ultimately having to, have to resolve on the fly. But this is again an area where technology, can help by, working smarter rather than harder. So as a way to wrap up, Jerry, I'll start with you, and then Jason, you can bring us home here. What action should companies take to go from, let's say, good to great, to use that line from the Collins book, to go from good to great in their last, mile delivery operations. And again, not just in improving driver satisfaction, but in becoming, a leader overall.
Again, that breaks down to what element a company is in the service of the whole process of being a distributor. I mean, there's so many variables out there because it's such a growth-oriented opportunity, and it has so much new startups in it. It really depends on the level of that company and the expertise of the people that are running those companies. But in general, you have to say, how do I manage a bottom line that gives me the opportunity to invest in technology, or at least get into this situation where I can find that technology, because that really is the big answer in a lot of these issues, especially in the startup companies, because they're out there. The time to deliver probably is expedited because they don't have that capability right now. So to Jason's point, somebody was out there and had to buddy up in order to transfer a box from one to the other. And those kind of experiences cost time, cost money, and irritates customers, right? Because now everything's late.
And
right?
irritates drivers. Jerry.
No, and irritates the driver. So when you look at it from a fundamental point of view, it's a matter of the efficiencies in your operations come from certain types of investments that you make. So how do you make that first investment to make that first improvement? Well, I'm sure it's Jason, in my opinion, is technology is the driver. And that's the critical aspect. The driver really needs to be focused on the delivery aspect and all the elements of, is he packaged properly in the back? Or does he have now somebody in his ear that's saying, hey, do this, do this, do this, taking that part of the operation out of it, making it more very seamless for him. And that creates time, available time for more package delivery by that truck, which increases the profitability of that truck, which you can share back to the driver in income and benefits and things of that nature. It really starts with the whole process. And like I said, there are many startup companies that are learning those skills and starting to understand that these are the requirements to stay long-term in the industry. And I think that's starting to mature. Companies like RouteSmart and RouteSmart Technologies are branching out, and we're expanding in these categories, and we're going to help them. At the end of the day, our goal is to make them profitable or help them be profitable, help them stabilize their workforce, which, by the way, is also competitive in today's society as it relates to government and what government's trying to do to help what they perceive needs are in the marketplace. All these things are crunching these companies, but there is a light. And the light is, don't quit, don't give up. Work on your margins, expand your margins. Don't put the margins in the bank, put the margins in your company, put the margins in technology and benefits into, even if it's a small step at a time. But pick the time, pick the step that you need to make because it's your company. Nobody should know that better than you. And again, you do need assistant management. One person cannot run these companies. You have to look to others to support. They're almost 24/7 day companies. You have to run them 24/7 days. That's my viewpoint.
Great advice there. Great insights there. I love the fact that, how you said, these things are all interconnected, right? So you can't look at driver satisfaction in isolation from operational efficiency. Yeah. And, really they build upon each other, and they both, again, relate to each other and build. So you really have to take this integrated and holistic look at this whole thing rather than kind of piecemeal, perspective. Jason, final thoughts on this topic in terms of what actions companies can do, again, not just to improve driver satisfaction, but also become a leader overall.
Well, I'll go back to what I said earlier. Drivers are in the customer satisfaction business. Simple as that. So I think the first thing that these companies can do, and I'm basically parroting what Jerry said, but maybe with a little more brevity, is pay attention. Be aware of drivers' satisfaction, measure it in some meaningful way, and apply that back to the business. Doesn't have to be huge steps, one small step at a time, right? And we'll get there. So appreciate you having us on today, Adrian.
Great. Well, I want to thank you both. Like I always say at the end of our episodes, we usually just scratch the surface on these topics, but both of you provide some great insights and advice. Again, I'm sure there'll be a link nearby to download the report for those of you that are interested in kind of diving in deeper in some of the takeaways from the research and some of the recommendations there. But again, thank you both for making the time to be with us. Jerry and Jason, thank you very much.
Adrian, thank you so much for having me on your program. You're a great leader in developing us to be able to respond to this category. So thanks for your leadership on this call. We appreciate it very much. Jason, always good to see you, my friend.
Always good to see you. Always good to talk to you. I'm sure you'll call me after this.
Great. Well,
I thought you would be calling me.
Clear my schedule.
Well, thank you both again for your time. And for those of you that are watching this episode on demand, if you're either at the RouteSmart website or on Talking Logistics, and you've got a question for Jerry or Jason, you can post it there, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to respond via that medium. Again, thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.
Thank you.